Cry your eyes out, Snyder chuds. The DCEU starts here and ends with Aquaman 2. It's day 122 of 365. Today's movie, Green Lantern. In brightest day, in blackest night, Ticket Stub Movie Club has everything you need to join a small community about loving movies. We have these daily movie suggestions, monthly deep dives, and more over on the Patreon. You can check that out at patreon.com/TicketStubMovieClub. Directed by Martin Campbell and starring Ryan Reynolds, Blake Lively, and Taika Waititi, this was the beginning of a decade-long attempt to match the pace with the MCU, but also stay unique. I've always been of the opinion that more is better. These superhero movies are fertile ground for up-and-coming filmmakers to cut their teeth on properties that are already established and have a lot of love behind them. I honestly feel like the DC or Marvel universe could make a huge step by canonizing any fan films that have been made about their movies into like extended multiverse storytelling. Imagine logging on to HBO Max and getting to watch a YouTube Batman movie that is technically part of the DCEU because people were willing to get together and make one. I feel like that would be awesome. That's how I feel we should think about this movie as well. Green Lantern is one of those extended multiverse movies that is technically in the canon, but maybe not in the mainline universe. Think along the lines of like Robert Pattinson's Batman or the Joker. These movies exist kind of around the DC universe to just show how many options they have, but will probably never get tied in the way that Marvel ties in their movies. It's like an extended universe vestigial organ. In 2011, I was pumped for this movie. I love this director. He made The Mask of Zorro, which is one of my favorite action-adventure movies of all time. Ryan Reynolds was at the time a smaller but really beloved name. People really liked him in his movies. And we didn't know Taika Waititi and what he was going to end up doing, but he's here too. Everything should have worked, and I still remember leaving the theater not upset with what I had watched, but maybe a little mad that they hadn't utilized the ring to the degree that they could have. I also felt like the villain had fallen a little flat, so revisiting in 2025, I was shocked at how many moving parts are in this movie that are working towards a goal but just not in tandem with each other. I'm kind of looking at this one sideways, and I'm not alone in that. Taika Waititi and Ryan Reynolds both have disavowed this movie in press runs that they've done after it's come out, saying that Free Guy was the first time they had worked together. It technically was not, but I understand their knee-jerk reaction here. And so as the self-appointed person that's going to take care of talking about this movie, let's get into the 3 reasons that this movie could have worked. The first reason that this movie could have worked was the 90s feeling that they were going for. I had totally forgotten the opening of this movie was centered around child versions of the main characters. And those child actors are doing essentially a very 90s send-up thing. That makes sense for this director. Martin Campbell came up in the 90s, so he's doing a kind of Dennis the Menace-y 90s feeling thing. I had forgot that they even set up Howard at the beginning of the movie as the third weird extra friend who awkwardly just leaves and then is reintroduced much later in the movie as what will become a villain. The young version of Blake Lively is kind of acknowledging his presence, but then gets way more excited when the young Ryan Reynolds is showing up. The whole thing is meant to feel like those early 90s family-friendly movie send-ups. And then it's supposed to turn into Top Gun, which again, totally makes sense. This guy is a fighter pilot who's going to get what is essentially a fighter jet within a ring that can create anything that his imagination desires. That is like fully 90s kids movie stuff. So that tone makes sense to me. Even Ryan Reynolds, like snarky but not fully Ryan Reynolds kind of feel to his character, feel like very 90s versions of characters that we all know and love. If Tom Cruise is your stand-in for Top Gun, then what he's doing here feels like other Tom Cruise-y performances, where he's a good-looking guy, but he's also smart and snarky and talented. They're all kind of working in tandem with each other. I get where that was going. Along the lines of that 90s feeling, this is kind of Top Gun meets like the Guyver, I guess. If you don't know what that movie is, it's a late 80s, early 90s Mark Hamill movie where he gets a super suit, essentially. Like I talked about in the Thor video, I understand these older directors who aren't specifically comic book guys taking big blockbustery sweeps at this material. The Guyver was kind of a cult classic. Top Gun is hugely popular, as we saw with its sequel. So it makes sense to me to do that kind of tone combination here. This is feeling like those movies, but also in the 2010s, so there's a lot of ability to play up the CGI. They don't have to do the big practical effects that take weeks to create and days to set up and shoot for a day. They can do all of this with CGI, so I understand the drive and want to do this. If it feels like I'm avoiding talking about the ways that it doesn't work, it's because that's kind of played out. Like, everyone knows that Green Lantern doesn't work as a movie, but I'm just trying to understand the creative choices that were made and what they wanted to happen, so that if you ever rewatch this movie, maybe you get more enjoyment out of it this time. So going back into it, if you're expecting Top Gun and the Guyver, Dennis the Menace opening that turns into a family-friendly, but also still kind of adult, but maybe more 4-quadrant movie, you can kind of see what they're getting here. So what was it that didn't work about it? Let's talk about that in the third section. The third thing that I noticed about this movie was Sinestro. He's here, and I like this character. The actor playing him, Mark Strong, is fantastic. And I think this is where the first big misstep of the movie is. If they would have gotten this right, I feel like people would have erred more on the end of liking this movie, and they may have been able to actually launch the DCEU from here. Parallax as our main villain with Howard as a backup villain just doesn't work, unfortunately. We need a head-to-head between a protagonist and an antagonist, and the Yellow Lanterns are here. Why not use them? Why not just drop into the lore and let Hal Jordan figure this out along with the audience? I think that could have worked a lot better than what we got. I love this director. I love the film references that he's going for. Never-Ending Story and The Guyver and Top Gun, and those kinds of feelings that he's trying to evoke are definitely evoked in the construction of the filmmaking, but the story that's being told is where it really starts to fall flat, unfortunately. Honestly, I think that Hal Jordan struggling with the death of his father is a bigger antagonist than Parallax is in this movie, and that's saying a lot because he's a giant earth-swallowing cloud thing, right? But what do you think? Are there any Green Lantern defenders? I feel like everyone I talk to does not like this movie. I've warmed up to it a little bit over the years, but I still do understand why the DCEU decided to launch with their next movie instead of from here. If you do decide to include this movie as part of that DCEU experience, as part of the multiverse, like I said at the top, Tamura Morrison then starts and ends this entire series. I think that's kind of crazy that he's in the first one and ends up all the way in Aquaman 2. That's really cool to me. From Darkest Night to Dark Side of the Moon, we are talking about Transformers 3 next, and as always, I'll see you tomorrow.